Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. This episode we are back on the Grullon DDR and we are working on figuring out what we're going to do with the steering. So right now I have the original C5 steering rack put in here, and down below it's not going to work. We can't put it through the motor. Let me show you what we got going on. So what we have going on is with the steering rack down below the frame rail, right now the height is way off. We have our A-arm, it's coming down at a slight angle, and then our steering arm is coming way up. That means there would be insane amount of bump steer. So what we have to do is we have to figure out what we're gonna do with the steering rack, where we position it in such a manner that we don't have a bump steer issue, which is a significant concern. We'll make it undrivable. So two things we can do. One, we can take and build bolt-on risers for the steering arms, which would then allow us to put it down underneath and then extend out where the angle is correct. Or we move the steering rack out to the front right here, and then we let it swing back, but we might run into an issue with interference with the wheels. So we have to see what's gonna work best. I have a Mustang II steering rack down below, so we're gonna fit it up, see what that's gonna look like up here versus down there versus what we would have to do. So we probably have to take and remove the boots just to see the inside. So let's go ahead and get the Mustang II steering rack in here and then see how the positioning looks and what we can do to improve it. The Mustang II rack fits nicely in here, and we'd be able to do a little joggle, remove this, do a joggle up to where it needs to be, and it'd be right at the right height. But it needs to come 3/4 of an inch this way, and then the shaft angle comes up right where the cable needs to go. So that's no bueno. So we gotta figure out how to make this work, which is what this whole episode's about, right? Let's do a little bit of internet searching and see what we come up with. In the meantime, I can take off the boots of this if we find one, find out what that looks like in terms of the ball joint in there and how that is fastened in place, because that fastening system is exactly what we would use to do our offset. So let's do a little bit of searching and see what we come up with. We have yet another steering rack. This one is from a Datsun 260Z. The input shaft is in line, so it's perpendicular to the shaft itself. So let's see how this one fits up in there. I think this is gonna give us a lot more clearance, and I think this is the one that's gonna work. And looks like with this one, we are gonna have adequate clearance. We're gonna have to bring it up just a hair to right here. And then that's gonna go straight past all of this and then up to our steering rack. We'll have to do two things. We'll have to take and find out how we're gonna mount this. It's usually clamped in, so you can see the type of clamps it uses. So we'll have to get something like that machined or printed out. And then we're gonna have to put a bar across here to mount it up. Then we're gonna have to go ahead and cut that off. Remove these boots and then bring a arm that is gonna take and mount up where the knuckle is, and then bring it backwards and then out. So I have a little bit of a challenge between where the output shaft is gonna come out and it's gonna run right past this. Now, if the wires are pointed this way, it's no good. Now, I think, based on the literature, that we can unbolt this and then just flip it, but then we'll have to do a crossover in the wire. Since we have to splice the wire anyways, that should be okay. So we'll go ahead, unbolt this, pull it off, and see if we can just flip it. There we go. And that's our contacts. So these have little teeth on both sides. And then it's like a little paper clip. I'll put it up on the screen. So these are the same going in. It's got two prongs coming out of the inverter board and it's clipped in on the backside. Now all we're doing is just flipping this and it's got the shielding. And back down it goes. Now we put a little alignment pins. How do I want to do this? We can drill new alignment pin holes, or we can just clip off pins. Okay, those are all clipped off. So now, if it was this way, press the changeo, and it goes that way. So those alignment pins are in here, so you can't do this. All right, and now this cable can go out over here. Just like that. Clears the shaft. And now, coming from the output over here, we can take and bring it up right here. No, we'll put a joint down here and we'll put a joint up there, and then it's gonna bring it out and clear everything. Next, we have to take the boots off. Once we have the boots off, we can get at our ball joint. When we remove the ball joint, we'll be able to put on a cup with a drag link back 6 inches. Make sure that we have this out enough where when it's in all the way, let's see, where's the ball joint? Okay, it's out here. So when it's in all the way, so turn to the right, it will still clear going back. So we'll take this apart and we'll cut off these supports. All right, let's go ahead and cut off the zip ties on these baffles, pull them off, and see what it looks like on the ball joint in here. Greasy. All right, so when you take this end off, and I think I'm actually gonna just take, and since these are already seated as much as they can be and they're not gonna get loose or anything, we're gonna take and crop it and then tack weld the end and build on from there. This side we don't need to modify. The other side, however, back here. All right, so we're gonna leave the ball joints on here. However, we are gonna cut them off on both sides and then use the metal that's already on there with proper threading as our starting point. So it's already socketed, it's attached on there, it is bottomed out, it's not gonna come apart on us. So it is gonna stay aligned. So we're gonna take, cut it, tack the end. On that side, we're gonna cut it, tack it, and then we're gonna weld on a tube to extend it out to the edge and then do a drag link. So direct drag link, tube, and drag link on that side. All right. So now we got to figure out how we're going to mount this up. This is centered, so we're going to need to make sure that when we weld on the extension on the end here, we end up with the same length protruding out the end to do our drag link. So for this, we need to go up, give ourselves a little bit of clearance on the vertical, and then give ourselves a little bit of clearance on the horizontal. We have the rack pretty much where it's gonna sit, right over here. And we have this 1-inch square tube. So what we're gonna do, cut it to width. Then we're gonna take and roll this back just a hair. You can see right here till it touches. We're gonna tack this in place. We're gonna tack it to the frame. And then we're gonna bring this guy out and tack it to here as well. There's gonna be another bushing that's gonna go on this side. So let's go ahead, cut this guy first, and then start tacking everything. Next thing we need to do is we need to go ahead and make our drag links. So what that's gonna entail is we're gonna crank it all the way over inboard, right. And then what that's gonna let us do is get all the way in and make sure that when we weld our drag link to this, it's not going to hit our support right here. So when we crank it all the way in, we'll also take and account for this 1/2 inch right here in case we need that additional turn radius. And then we'll make the drag link where it clears by about 1/4 inch back here when it's full lock to the right. First things first, let's crank it all the way to the right and see where we sit. With it all the way over, we still got about 3/4 inch of clearance. So we'll grind this flat and weld our drag link straight to the backside right here. So once again, we're gonna use this 1x square tube. It's an 1/8 inch wall. That is going to be plenty of strength to carry the load without flex in or outwards as we're driving. And from a strength standpoint, that's gonna be stronger than these original tie rod ends just from material continuity. So let's go ahead and we'll do 6.5 inches back, and that's gonna be our drag link. All right, so we have our 1-inch extension tacked on here, and then we took and notched this square tube at an angle. So that way when we put it on here, it sits slightly forward. And now we got to notch this guy for the same thing to put the end piece from this guy in here.
We're gonna leave this shaft end piece right here. That way we can have this as a removable item on the end for adjustment. We're gonna cut it right about here. That way it gives us 1 inch between for us to weld this in.
I went ahead and took the boot off this so we can get good handling on it without it being in the way. We're gonna put a different boot on there anyways, where it's just gonna be around these two pieces just to seal the ball joints. Same thing back here, we're gonna put the boot on later, but it's no longer gonna be tapered down to this size. So we have this tapered out this way. Now we gotta put a notch in for the ball joint. Right there. So the opposite direction, this way. And for what looks like to be 1 inch, I'll measure it just to make sure. We have our pieces notched and everything already. I just gotta clean out the inside. This guy goes right here, this way. And then this guy, I'm gonna go ahead and just snug this in. And this guy is gonna go like this. Alright, so we just need to make sure that it is level and then tack weld it in place. All right, this drag link is all tacked in place. So it swoops back 6 inches and out, and it's all the way in. It's got good clearance. Even if we take this guy out, it'll still have 1/2 inch of clearance. So now moving on over to this side. On this side, we're gonna bring it all the way back in. As you can see, this guy needs to be extended almost this exact length. So we'll go ahead, bring it all the way in, measure it out, cut a tube, and then weld it onto the end of this. So everything's still removable, including the drag links. So let's go ahead and do that, bring it all the way in, and then do up this side. All right, well, it's all tacked in place, and now I'm gonna go ahead and pull it from the mounts, remove a rack, final weld everything, and put it back in. quite think that through. I thought it was far enough out where I'd be able to take it off without pulling it out. I'm not about to change anything. I'm gonna pull this motor mount out, jack it up, and we should be able to get to it. And there we go. And of course, it's raining outside. So, we're gonna spray it in here, all right? All right, the rack here, it's had about a week to dry. So what I still need to do here is down the road, next time I place an order with Sen, we're gonna do some cutout rings for the ends. That way the DOM tubing doesn't flex as it gets lateral load. And then, real quick, we're gonna take the boots that we have that went on here, and we're gonna crop off the end that went to the tie rod and slide them over and clamp them in place on either side. And then that way we have everything protected and we can toss it in. All right, boots are on. They're good. So now we'll have to do two little boots on the ends here, but let's go ahead and toss this back in, mount it up, and that way we can keep moving forward. I do have the power steering column, and we will get that next time. So let's go ahead and get this back in here. Well, that's it. The steering rack is in. It is all mounted. And the only thing I need to change is I need to shorten the threaded portion and then tap it just a little bit deeper to bring the wheels in a little more. But that's an easy fix. So, boot, end caps, rethread. So that's gonna be it for this episode. I did get the power steering column, like I said. Let's take a look over here. And this is our power steering column from a Saturn view. And we'll get the little microcontroller, and all the pieces are in here, including the racks, the sleeves, the extensions, everything. We'll go ahead and get this all unpacked. However, as you can see, post office box, post office box, post office box. This was wrapped in triplicate in post office boxes. And post office envelopes. If you do this when you sell merchandise and you go to the post office and you raid all their stuff without paying for it, that's theft. You're a scumbag. So, guaranteed not a good review for this guy. Yeah, that's what it is. On the following episode, we're gonna install this. Next episode, I'm gonna try to tackle the electrical to get those high voltage cables all settled in place. Catch you guys next time. Thank you for watching. If you like what you saw, subscribe. See you next time.